Supermen.
Taken from the news stories concerning two rival gangs fighting over East End protection rights. Stay gold, pony boy. Stay gold.
Can you hear the army coming?
Really excited about this one. So tonight is all about the Battle of Epping Forest, and it's from 1973's Selling England by the Pound. It's the first track off the second side of that classic album, largely to be considered one of early Genesis's best albums. Definitely takes us on a little bit of a journey here, and I just can't wait to get your take on this song. I'll be honest, to me, it's like very much in the vein of kind of Harold the Barrel and Get 'Em Out by Friday. It's one of these very interestingly written musical pieces with this story that Peter Gabriel just throws on top that probably made most of the band members cringe, but studios were so expensive at the time and they were so much in debt, they just went with it. So, that said, there's a cool story here. It's a very fun song. I know I kind of went on a very personal journey on this podcast with Get 'Em Out by Friday, and I don't have quite that same journey with this one. I really enjoy this song. I find it humorous and fun, and it flows well, but there's a whole lot to unpack here when it comes to not just the story, but what this song kind of tells us about what was going on inside Genesis at the time and what we are going to see with the way Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is written here in the next year. But yeah, just really want to get your initial perspective on it as we're jumping into this cold, talking about the Battle of Epping Forest.
Yeah, this is, I've been trying to make the point the whole time we've been discussing this album that Genesis ultimately has a chip on their shoulder here, right? And they're trying to prove to their English fans that they are still very much an English band. It's to the extent that I would call this, Genesis's English album, right?
Yeah.
Everything on it is dealing with some topic and doing it, and it's dealing with some topic of relevance to English society, British society at this time, right? Coming out of the 60s, in the early 70s, it's a tumultuous time. And this is one of those songs that I think highlights that. I think you're spot on with Harold the Barrel or Get 'Em Out by Friday. It's a story song, right? It's a chance for Peter Gabriel's theatrics to kind of really come through. In this case, I think the goal was ultimately to just fill every waking second of the song with some musical tone or note or word. There's not a breath of air in the song. It's so tightly packed, and for close to 12 minutes, it comes at you hard. As a musician, as a kind of a producer, there's a lot to appreciate in this song. But I think, largely I have to agree with the band here. This is a song that I think misses its mark musically. What I hear here, Jarrett, is I'm going to throw a couple of words at you from the music dictionary, but the first is there's quite a lot of recitative in the song, right? Peter Gabriel is effectively reciting, which he does, at certain times throughout the history of Genesis. You've mentioned a couple great examples, but That's a technique that is particularly dramatic, right? It refers to specifically, the best examples would be within opera, where you're kind of between the big arias and the big pieces within the opera, but everybody still sings their lines. It's a
Right.
very sing-songy, and that is the recitative, and
What was that
there's
again? What was that?
they sing everything. Yes, so it's
There's a lot
so
of that in this song. Yeah, it's
yeah, Peter
yeah.
Gabriel
There's a
is
lot of that.
it has picked up on that, right? And I think there's a lot of folks out there that would argue it's probably too much, but
Yeah,
but the idea that they're after here is really it's kind of a prog rock masterpiece, right? They're kind of pulling every stop that they have and throwing it out there. From the time signature to the harmonic nature of the song, again, we have that Tony Banks just hating the traditional Western chord cadences, right? He hates
mm,
to end a phrase with a traditional chord cadence. So there's, I don't think, a whole lot of resolution in this song. But beyond that, rhythmically, thematically, it's all over the place. I would call it a prog rock fever dream, right? And it comes at you with both barrels. Now, the other word I'd throw in here, Jarrett, would be that would be etude, right? And an etude is a working piece that's intended for a musician to practice, right? You practice etudes on the piano, but instead of just kind of running scales, it's a very technical piece that's supposed to help you hone your skills without being boring or unnecessarily repetitive. This to me is as close to a prog rock etude as I think we could get. Meaning, it's got everything in it. It's got all the great prog rock stuff, but none of it really comes together. It just feels like an exercise.
yeah.
Um, and I'd like to get your take on that.
Well, the band wrote this song without Gabriel's lyrics, and that's how The Lamb was written, the entire album, right? So while to me this has the same critique that I gave Get 'Em Out by Friday, where it just was so darn busy, I think I've come to appreciate a little bit like their method here. But really, this was the four guys writing this music and putting it down, and then Gabriel went into a dark room and wrote these lyrics, which were inspired by a news story that he read a few years previous to this about territorial battles between two rival gangs in East London. But it's hilarious because when he thought, oh, that would be an interesting song to write about, he went back and looked for that article and he couldn't find it. And he couldn't find it at all. So he just remembered the headline and he remembered some of the basics, but he actually placed an advertisement in the Times to try and learn more about the stories. He looked through library archives. He was busy trying to figure out how to retell this story. And then he couldn't find it and he just created his own story and he made up all these characters, which are pretty comical. There's Liquid Lynn and Harold Demore and these two gangs and this storyline that kind of blends the fight, between these gangs in the woods with the juxtaposition of wealth nearby in the neighborhoods in London. And Collins said, there's a quote from Phil Collins saying there were like 300 words a line. There was just no space. And it was like all the air had been sucked out of it. And he's saying, I'm not saying that Peter was wrong or that the band was wrong. It's just that if we had known that we could have thinned it out a bit in those days, you know, the studio was so expensive, we just carried on. But then playing it live was like having an entire encyclopedia blasted in your face.
Yeah, I mean, if you pull up the lyrics to this song, they're thick. They're, you know, very wide.
Yeah,
He's saying an awful
yeah,
lot in
yeah.
every line of the song. And you're right. You know, there's a lot of characters in here. And kind of drawing the comparison to really a medieval battle. You know, I think he makes a reference to you haven't seen something like this since the days of the Civil War, you know, referring to the
Right.
English Civil War of the 1650s. So you know, it's you know, a clever tie together to kind of say these street battles are going on, but really, you know, in England, this is nothing new, right? These personalities that we talk about, he's got Bob the Knob, and just like you said,
Right.
you know, Liquid Lynn. I like Liquid Lynn. There's Mick the Prick, right? So
Make the pick.
these not terribly creative, but they're great kind of gangster names for East End London. Of course, Epping is a neighborhood in North London. Epping Forest surrounds it, but it's a fairly urban area other
Right.
than the forest. And so, kind of drawing, you know, the Battle of Epping Forest, it's a neighborhood people in the area would know. It's not the docks, you know, down in the east. But it's such a nice juxtaposition for these battles of the Wars of the Roses and the English Civil War, you know, which were always, you know, the Bladen Hill and Bamford Field, and you know, kind of all of these great names.
It
Um,
well, and it took me a few listens to realize that this wasn't like a medieval battle that he was, reflecting on. Because the way the song starts, that little interlude at the beginning that I just played with the pipes and the march, it just takes your mind to this kind of medieval atmosphere. And then he starts talking about fancy cars driving by the Epping Forest, right? And then you start to really drill into the lyrics, and you realize that it's a battle over gang territories. And for me, it's kind of why I said "Stay Gold, Pony Boy" at the beginning of the podcast, because it just reminds me of the big brawl in The Outsiders.
the
That's
Rumble.
exactly what's going. Yeah, that's exact the Rumble. That's exactly what's going on here. And it's interesting because he couldn't find the article, but folks have kind of researched and tried to find that article, and they found that this really happened. No one actually died in this actual battle. That's not the way it turned out in the Genesis song, where literally everybody dies. Spoiler alert. But at the in the real battle, there were no deaths in this fight that took place. But again, I just like thinking about that very American story of the Outsiders and Pony Boy and Stay Gold.
Yeah, you know, to me, the line that really solidified the urban gang warfare nature of this is Liquid Lynn's statement. You know, he says, "I'm breaking the legs of the bastard that got me framed."
Yeah, yeah, that's not very medieval.
Yeah, it jumps out at you.
Yeah, yeah, that's a little more gangster for sure, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, but I think this is another one of these clever songs. You know, Peter Gabriel's lyrics kind of drive this in the direction of modern England as seen through allegory of the past, right? And
Yeah,
there's an awful lot of that on this album. And I don't think this is an exception, but I do think the execution kind of falls a little short. And it's probably, again, when the boys have kind of done this experiment of here we have this big epic song and we're going to tack the lyrics on top of it after the fact. It hasn't necessarily worked out. As well as some of the other endeavors have, right? Particularly
Right,
when they all
right.
sit down and write the song together. We certainly know that that works well for this band. But it's exciting, to know that they're continuing to work on it, right? That they don't give up. They don't have the most success with it, but it's still a different way of going about doing things, and that keeps stuff fresh, right? So even if this song isn't necessarily a Hall of Famer, it's got some real nice points to it. In particular, and I'll tell you what, the one thing that really stands out to me is Tony Banks kind of coming out of his shell a little bit when it comes to these synthesizers, right? We
Yeah,
know he's big on the Hammond organ, the piano, the mellotron, all of the instruments that he's
right.
been hammering away at on this album. But here, this song is gonna feature that synthesizer, and in particular, I'm pretty sure this is gonna be the ARP soloist or the pro soloist that he's been tinkering around with, right, for the last year or two in the early 70s. And it really shines on this track. It has some great little solo bits, and I love the tone. The tone is just fantastic. The other thing that is exceptional is the timekeeping, right? Phil Collins, again, just kind of shines as an excellent prog rock drummer, but really as like a human metronome. I mean, he's back there just keeping
Right.
steady time. And this song goes from, and you can hear it, it goes 7/4. They use the kind of the signature 6/4 time. There's a fair amount of 6/8. We think there's some 2/8 time in here, a couple of bars of 2/8 or maybe 1/4, who knows? Um, and again, we already talked a little bit about how I don't feel like there's any real traditional resolution in this song. There's also not any real guitar solo or big funk section or anything that is noteworthy for Steve Hackett, right? Um,
Y- that's what's really compelling to me about this back half of Selling England by the Pound. I think as I've been on this Genesis journey, I like to find the common threads that go through the entire discography of Genesis, and like I enjoy listening to Invisible Touch and looking for signs of their prog rock kind of 70s past, like Tonight, 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 that middle section that I know you and I both love. Heck, I mean, there's even signs of it on We Can't Dance in the 90s.
oh yeah.
But I also am just very hooked on the the mindset of the players in the band and how this is an example of Phil Collins, Tony Banks, and Mike Rutherford laying down a pretty epic piece of music together. And then really without Peter Gabriel, right? And as we get into, we're probably going to do Cinema Show next. And as we get into Cinema Show, there's like a storyline of really the key three guys writing portions of that song that they reflected on later that gave them confidence that they would be okay, as a three piece. And so, I mean, there's some epic Steve Hackett moments in this song. I mean, there's something he's doing with his pedals in here that I want to point out as we play this song that I just want to get your take on. But there's some epic stuff from him. And then we'll probably let After the Ordeal play, which I think is also just a Steve Hackett masterpiece. I mean, his contributions on this album are astronomical, but there's these little moments in time where you can see the entire thread of Genesis's entire history kind of come together. And I feel like that kind of happens in the music of this song. Not so much the lyrics, but the music of the song.
Yeah, great points.
All right, there's a lot here, so I'm gonna kind of kick it off and let's listen to Peter try and tell this story a little bit, and then there is a section in the middle that I still don't understand, and maybe somebody out there can help me with it. There's a reverend who is furniture shopping but ends up at a brothel. There's something going on that's like, I get the battle, I understand exactly what's going on in the battle. But this reverend, there's got to be a deeper story there, and maybe you pick up on it, but let's see what we can get. But as soon as we push play, it's really hard for you and I to find a place to chat because there's an entire encyclopedia coming at our face.
That's right. It's about to get intense, y'all.
Yeah. We'll do our best.
Along the forest road, there's hundreds of cars, luxury cars. Each has got its load of convertible bars, cutlery cars, superstars. But today is the day when they sort it out, 'cause they disagree on a gangland boundary. They disagree on a gangland boundary. There's Willie Wright and his boys, one hell of a noise. That's Billy's boys, with fully fashioned bands.
That's Billy's boys.
That's Little John's thugs, the barking slugs, super slugs. For today is the day when they sort it out. Yes, these Christian soldiers.
On stage, he's wearing I think like a dark ski mask. That's kind of his costume that he's wearing on stage for this one.
Battle of Epping Forest. Yes, it's the Battle of Epping Forest, right outside your door.
They do reframe this a few times though, so there's a little bit of that you don't get in some of their other heavier ones.
No, you ain't.
That's true. This little section here actually serves to tie the whole song together, really, right?
Yeah.
'Cause for the most part, he's given us these brief descriptions of the gangsters, in the proverbial Epping Forest. So here we have Bill and Johnny.
Here's the guitar trick that I'm fascinated by.
No guns in this gentleman's bout. Ain't your G moves
It's like a wah-wah,
Yep.
almost like a distorted
Yeah.
wah-wah.
round his head.
Yeah, and he may actually be chaining a couple of things here. So he uses a volume pedal to great effect on this album, and that's kind of what I'm hearing there, is that he's got the tone in, and he's just rocking the volume in
Yeah.
from nothing to wah. Yeah, it has a very wah effect to it when you do it that way. But I think that's just a volume pedal.
They've never been alone after getting a radio phone. The bluebells are ringing for sweet Will Sam, handing out bread and jam.
Good old Sweet Meal Sam.
Sweet ham. The picnic line gets reframed a few times as well. That's got a little 80s vibe to it, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, and
Yeah.
It's 5-4 on Willie
this again, it kind of to me feels very Who-ish, and it's that Hammond. It's kind of it's just a place and time thing, I think, but those little arpeggiated kind of lines that he plays.
He's got it made. The shops that need aid, those that haven't paid. I'll do my double show. Sid Micklebrick.
Here we have
Yeah.
Nick the Pricks.
Here's Nick.
Hackney accent 8 8.
Does it pay?
Well, I think he revisits a few of the voices from Supper's Ready here, so, or Willow Farm specifically.
There's our liquid Lynn.
Yeah, this takes me, again, just thinking of common threads. It feels a little bit like robbery, assault, and battery from Trick of the Tail. Like it's got that little bit of that Hackney voice to it.
They called me the Reverend when I entered the church.
All right, here's where, to me, this is just a complete exit ramp from what we were just listening to. But there's got to be a thread here.
Oh yeah. Okay. So in my mind, what this is this is a little tale about entering a world of crime, right? Getting into it. So they called me the Reverend when I entered the church unstained. The church here, in my mind at least, is the business, right?
Yeah.
And he's the Reverend because he was so clean. Right? He hadn't committed any crimes, but the name is going to flip-flop, right? He's going to continue to be the Reverend because I think he's going to become more a proselytizer in the long run after he has learned about this world.
Yeah, I was trying to figure this out, and like there's some folks that think maybe he gets blackmailed by the criminals, but to your point, maybe it's just a sink into the descent of crime,
Well,
and
that's
he considers himself saintly and clean.
I think that the tale here where he says he was shopping for furniture and he saw a sign that said beautiful chest, and he followed it and he found a woman who showed him her yeah. And best is just shy of breast, right? So that to me is the story, right? He meant well. He was trying to do something good, and he followed the wrong path, and here he is.
Yeah, but is he swinging chains over his head in the Battle of Epping Forest? Like, is he one of the fighters, or like that's
oh,
where
absolutely.
I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, he's now one of the part of the criminal syndicate, right? And
All right.
and a warrior in this battle.
All right, good. We'll go with that. I like it. It ties a bow on it. That makes me happy.
Glad we could get that taken care of.
That is, by the way, that's musically, that's my favorite section outside of the outro of this song.
Oh, absolutely. Here we have a little bit of the refrain, right? But you feel how schizo the song is. It just
right.
So that section is probably the most complete. But I do like this vibe. This is a crazy multimeter vibe. This is where we hear kind of that. They fill in some 1/4 sections and do some weird stuff.
Yeah. Here's that guitar effect again, with some finger picking on top. I love this part.
Yeah, this tone right here is the ARP or the ARP synthesizer, and it's a great tone. It's very unique. And there it is.
Yeah. I love that little play on words with Rolls Royce, I guess.
Now this section, Jarrett, reminds me for some reason of a scene in Final Fantasy VIII. I think there's a bar scene that has those kind of that chord progression, that do.
I'll have to play it again, but you're probably right. The standout song from that is "Eyes on Me." Obviously,
there you go.
I played that at my wedding. Yes, we're video game nerds too.
That's right. I was going to say, Jared and Jake, of course, are legendary Final Fantasy VIII fans.
The morning goo.
It's a great use of the synthesizers, but in the end, you kind of want to know what this story was all about, right?
Oh, dude, they just flipped a coin. Like, it's very anticlimactic. Like, it doesn't. It leaves you wondering for sure.
And then Steve, of course, gets the last 30 seconds or so here just to do his thing.
Reminds me a little of the last 30-45 seconds of Musical Box, where they just let loose. Story's over, let's go, you know?
There it is.
So, wow, that is the Battle of Epping Forest. I know a little bit more about it than I did before I went into it, so I appreciate your thoughts on it. Musically, I think it's a heck of a little piece of prog rock history that, these four guys wrote together, and then Gabriel did what Gabriel does. He came in and wanted to tell a story, and he told a story, and he didn't care how it was going to be perceived. And he's a true artist for that. He got on stage, he wore his, black ski mask, to represent the gangs. He wore a really nice top hat and, jacket to represent that reverend in the middle section there that we tried to diagnose. So, and he was doing these costume changes directly on stage because he didn't give himself any time to leave the stage to do any costume changes. So, really fun to watch that one live. I don't have a lot of history on them doing it live, but there are a few videos that have been kind of spliced together on YouTube that you guys can go and check out.
Yeah, and I think this was a kind of traditionally a difficult song for them to do live, right? And we talked a little bit about that, and so it didn't make it on stage a lot, I don't think. And probably wasn't a terribly big fan favorite at the time either. But again, it's just kind of hard to follow, and pop songs don't work that way, right? Even good prog rock songs. So in my mind, this is a nice attempt, but I think it falls short. But it's fun to listen to, and it's definitely been fun to talk about with you here.
Yeah, agreed. And the song right after it is After the Ordeal, which to me gives me a little bit of like outside of the wall vibes, right? Like after the story of the wall concludes, there's a bit of music that kind of pulls it together. This is fully instrumental. It's, a continuation of Steve kind of doing his thing. Interestingly enough, though, I'm just going to push play on it and we'll let it play. But interestingly enough, as I was doing some research for this, I found that Tony Banks never listens to this song. I mean, he and Steve Hackett wrote it together, but he added, I might get this wrong, but he added like a Baroque type feel over top of it, and he hates it as a result. So he says he never listens to the song, but I think it's quite a fine little piece of music and very compelling and interesting. And especially, I just got all these vinyls, so I got Selling England by the Pound on vinyl, and this one really stands out to me is this bridge between Epping Forest and Cinema Show, and does a really good job of pulling this whole backside of music together.
Yeah, this is such a pretty little song, but it again is maybe a little conflicted. I can see Tony's issue with it. Steve is somewhere on the Iberian Peninsula, I think, in the late 17th century, and Tony is 400 miles east of there in Italy, around the same time. And it's just, I think it still works. It's a pretty little tune.
Yeah, and it goes on. It's got a whole second part to it that we'll hear here soon. But as it's playing, just we love your feedback. We love your comments. Let us know how you're enjoying the podcast so far. I think this is our 14th episode. I think when we started, I didn't think we would do 14 of these, but I'm excited that we have. I'm pretty excited too that I think we're almost through selling England by the pound, and we're gonna be able to be really thoughtful about how to bring The Land Lies Down on Broadway to life here for you guys. So we're looking forward to that in a few weeks. Here's where Hackett just gets
It's a very lyrical solo he's doing here.
Yeah. If Hackett's listening and doesn't like that 2 weeks in a row I've compared these songs to Gilmore songs, feel free to reach out and let me know, Steve Hackett.
Well, he'll like this even less. That as much as I like the line he plays here, it's kind of dry, right? He doesn't use a lot of vibrato. Whereas Gilmore just kind of never leaves a note alone. It's it's always wiggled. There's always something going on. So that one does kind of stand out to me a little bit. Like, wiggle the finger there, right, Steve.
Oh, and then I think a lot of folks listen to this thinking that After the Ordeal was specifically written to kind of clean up after the Battle of Epping Forest, but this was written before the Battle of Epping Forest, and it was named before the Battle of Epping Forest. So interestingly enough, like, they were already planning on calling this After the Ordeal, and then it just made sense when they were producing the album to lay this in right after that battle. So interesting little fun fact there, if you will.
It'd be fun to try and figure out what the ordeal this song was originally after.
What it was originally, yeah.
If it wasn't the Battle of Epping Forest, what was it?
Probably, given the theme of this album, probably something purely British. And with that, we are Mild Mannered Supermen. We enjoyed bringing this to you, and we will see you again next week.
Good talking to you, my brother.
You too.